Okay, everyone to take their seats, please. It's officially 8:30. Welcome to the Conscious Contact group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic. We've got a couple quick, hey guys, got a couple quick announcements. First of all, it's important to know that the food and fellowship starts at 8 p.m. We always encourage everybody to try to get here and have some fun before the meeting. It's an important part before and after the meeting. I don't know if you noticed, the church is having a bake sale out there. If you are interested in that, it benefits the youth organization. So there's a cash box there, honesty program. It's very inexpensive. I watched them all bake stuff today. It was pretty amazing. The young kids and all really put a lot into that, like $2 and $4. I mean, it's pretty nice to give back a little bit to the church that gives us so much here. We also have in the back there our official greeter hoodies and T-shirts, which are always cool and fun. Amy's going to handle that. Where's Amy? Amy and Val are sitting over there. See them after the meeting. Here's an announcement. This is pretty cool because Lambertville does this every year. Lambertville Sober New Year's Eve party. It's not a real true AA function, but it's a very important part of AA having fun and fellowship. And so the flyers are on the back. It will be Monday, December 31st, 2018. The doors open at 7 p.m. It says open speaker meeting 8 p.m. dinner 9:15 DJ. Anyway, full course for you. A whole bunch suggested retail donation of $15, but that's negotiable. You can arm wrestle the bouncer at the door, and if you beat them, I think they can. Anyway, I don't know how that works, but anyway, there are a couple of announcements. Be mindful that we're not allowed to smoke anywhere on church property. That's pretty much universal at any church. Be mindful of this place because we are here at the the luxury of the church. They offer this place and they ask us, please just take care of it. There was one instance, somebody found an empty vodka bottle in the men's room or women's room. I don't know which one it was, but the teacher found it and there's kids that go in there. So be mindful of that. We ask if you do drink your vodka, take it home with you, recycle it, and if you do leave a bottle, make sure it's a full one. We have standards here. Saturday night, Brian's going to come up here, enjoy, and have a good night.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Brian, and I am an alcoholic. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street at 8:30 in Doylestown, PA. The business meeting for this group meets here every Saturday, 7 o'clock to 7 p.m. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. If there is anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves by first name. Yeah? Welcome. Andrew, welcome. Howard, welcome. Mike, welcome. Anybody else? Okay. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and that is willing to sponsor, please raise their hands. All right, cool. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Yeah, go ahead.
Church of the Messiah in North Wales, December 4th, that's the 77th anniversary. It's going to be held 6:30 p.m. for food. 8 p.m. there'll be an L&L speaker and an aid.
Cool. Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. This group has a couple of announcements. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who cannot afford them can put donations in the jar on the table in the back of the room marked big book and CD donations. If you would like a CD of any speaker, past or present, see me or Ron before or after the meeting. They are available free of charge. And with that, Amy is going to come up here and read the AA preamble.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Now, Amanda's going to come up and read the 12 steps of recovery.
Hi, I'm Amanda, an alcoholic. The AA 12 steps of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I would like to welcome Brian back up.
Okay, one other quick AA-related announcement that we missed. Next Saturday, December 8th, up the street here at the Salem United Church, there will be a workshop going on, 10 to 5 all day, food and fellowship. There will be 5 different speakers throughout the day from Philadelphia, California, New York, Maryland. Should be a good time all day. Recovery, food and fellowship, like I said. So if that interests you, please, everybody's welcome. 7th tradition, every A group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we're going to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we do have expenses. This group provides services, and any donations will help to cover the cost of rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops. As Ron said, there's absolutely no smoking on the church property. That's as requested by the church. We're given the privilege to hold this meeting here, and that's really the one thing that's requested from the church, is that we keep the property clean, and looking good, so just help us out with that, and, wait till you get off the premises, be considerate of that as you're leaving here, please. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. And now, to introduce our speaker for tonight, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, who is on loan to us from the No Serenity Till Brooklyn group of Brooklyn, New York. Please help me and welcome Kelly H.
Hi, my name is Kelly and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Kelly. How's the mic? Do I sound okay in the back? All right, great. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you so much for asking me to come speak here. And, I'm so incredibly blessed to be able to take a ride from Brooklyn and come. And I'll give you my statistics first. My sober date is 9/9/99. It was not intentional, but that's just the way it worked out. And I got sober in a group called the Atlantic Group in New York. And my home group now is the No Serenity Till Brooklyn group. And I sponsor other people, and I have a sponsor. And this program has given me every single thing I have today. I am so blessed to be able to be here, to want to go to meetings, to want to work the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and to want to make the big book my life and the way I live life. I started drinking, my story isn't probably much different than many. I started drinking early. I didn't come from an alcoholic home. I came from a wonderful home. I was adopted at 9 days old. I had no idea. It was a closed adoption. I didn't know anything about that, but I knew that I was adopted into a very loving home, 2 parents. I had a brother, and I explored alcohol pretty early on. It was always intriguing. My parents had alcohol in the house, and I think maybe my first drink was 151, and it was a great introduction into into how to drink, right? So I started drinking, and probably my first drink I blacked out, and I was with a friend of mine. And she had 1 drink and that was it. I drank 1 and then had another, and I don't remember the rest that happened the whole day. And I loved that feeling. Like I was, the alcohol had the opposite effect on me. I got high when I started drinking, whereas so many people pass out that aren't alcoholics. That gave me energy. It gave me excitement. It gave me everything. It was wonderful. And I continued drinking. As a young kid. It wasn't a problem, but I'd have sleepovers, 13, 14, we'd get drunk, or I'd bring it to the school dance or whatever it was. And so that was kind of my solution at an early age, but it wasn't a problem. And it was sporadic. When I left my house, I got into school for college in Washington, D.C. I grew up in upstate New York. But I got into college and I went to Washington, D.C. And that was fantastic because I had no rules. I didn't have to abide by anything. I could stay out as long as I wanted and do whatever I wanted. And I grew up in a very strict home. I tell you, my family was wonderful, but my mom was a nun for 18 years before she met my dad. So I grew up in a Catholic nun's house, and you can only imagine, if you've ever gone to Catholic school, what that means. You don't mess with her, right? You do not mess with a ex-Catholic nun. So I got out of the house and I was free, right? And it was wonderful, but I pretty much blacked out on a regular basis. I got a job as a cocktail waitress in Washington, D.C., and it was in the early 90s. It was like this really cool acid jazz lounge, and it was like the thing at that time. And, I wasn't even legal yet, but I was tipped in drugs, alcohol, everything, anything I wanted. I had, my apartment was the after-hours party. I had comforters nailed to the windows so no light would come in. And I had, that was where we partied afterwards. And the sun, I was like, when the sun came out, I was petrified of the sun. I never wanted the sun to come. I wanted it to be dark all the time. I would be happy if it was dark and I could drink. That's how I wanted it. And so things started to unravel pretty quickly for me. I ended up being somebody that would get pretty violent when I would drink, and I wasn't afraid of anybody or anything. And what happened was someone called me a name that I probably deserved, and I pushed her down the stairs. And it was a pretty long flight of stairs. And it turned out that she was a lawyer. We don't have good luck. We never have good luck. So I was in college, and they said, well, you can never come back here, obviously, the people I was working for, and they told me to never come back, and I kind of hid out in fear of the cops finding me for a very long time. I don't know who that person is. I haven't been able to make amends to that person because I don't know who they are, and if I ever came into contact with them, I'd have a big one. So I'm always prepared for any amend to whomever I've harmed in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I ended up getting fired from that job, and that kind of behavior was regular for me. And I just had no fear, and I put the drink inside of me, and it didn't matter, and that's how I wanted to live. And that continued. that continued until the man I was dating at the time said he was going to tell my mom if I didn't do something about my drinking. And again, I tell you, I didn't want to mess with my mother, so I was petrified. So I said, okay, fine, I'll tell her. And I told her I may have a problem with drinking in a really vulnerable state. The morning after, I felt really, really crappy from something, so I told her I may have a problem. And when I graduated luckily from college. When I graduated, I moved back home with them, and she said, okay, I'll go to a meeting with you. I didn't really know what Alcoholics Anonymous was, but a lot of people were telling me to go there. So when I came, the night of this meeting that I was going to go to, my mother was making dinner, and I was like, at 7:45 or 6:45, the meeting starts at 7, and I figured she had just forgotten about it. I was so relieved that we weren't going to have to go and deal with this. And then all of a sudden she remembers, shoves me in the car, drives to the meeting. We get there. This is in upstate New York. And I walk in with my mother half an hour late. And there's probably, 10 people sitting at a chair. It's all older men. I'm young. I'm 21 years old. And at the end of the meeting, someone says, does anybody else have anything to share or say? And everybody looks at us, of course. And my mom raises her hand and says, I just want to say, I think it's so beautiful how you all share your feelings and talk about this stuff. I'm beet red. I vow never to go back to Alcoholics Anonymous. This is definitely not the place for me, and I'm petrified. Someone comes over to me at the end of after the meeting and said, there's another meeting tomorrow morning if you want to come. There's some younger people there. So I brought my brother to that meeting. And so we went in, and I got sober. And so what that meant to me at that time was I went to some meetings. I had 2 sponsors, neither of who I called. I had a coffee commitment to bring the snacks, and had my mom make snacks every week. So that was and I used other substances because it wasn't alcohol. That was my idea. That's my idea before actually getting sober of what being an Alcoholics Anonymous was. I had heard someone speak about, I smoked marijuana and I was okay in meetings, and so I hooked onto that. And I drank non-alcoholic beer. I would drink like 20. Probably gave me the little buzz and a huge belly, but that was kind of like, that's what I was doing in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that lasted about 3 months, and I got a job in the city in New York. I moved to New York thinking I was sober and in this wonderful place, and I got a job as an NBC page, like on 30 Rock. I've never seen the show, but people the page, I was doing tours for people at NBC. And so, in the different studios. And so I had arrived once again. I had this knowledge. I knew what to do. And so I lasted about 1 month, and someone said, no, you're fine, come drinking. And I said, fine, I will definitely go drinking. It took me no time at all to be so much worse than I was. At first it was, I'm only going to drink out when I'm out with friends. Then it was, I'm only going to drink on the weekends. And then it was, well, I might as well drink at home because it's much cheaper. And my house was filled with empty bottles. I created a lot of wreckage once again. I was a tornado. And I continued to hurt people. And it was so much worse. That bottom really took over very quickly. I went into a 4-day blackout after having visited Washington, D.C. and seen some friends again. And I came out of that blackout shaking, detoxing from alcohol and not realizing even what it was, because I never had allowed my body to detox from alcohol. I always had alcohol. I felt like I was gonna jump out of my skin. I felt exactly like Bill felt in his story when he talks about moving the mattress to the floor lest he jump out the window, sash and all. I felt that. When I read that in the big book, I related so much. I was crawling inside of my body. I hated everybody and everything. Hated life. I didn't know what to do, but I needed someone to tell me I was gonna be okay. And what happened for me was complete divine intervention, because none of it was my idea of what I should do next. A friend of mine took me to the employee assistance program at my job, and I walked in, and my idea was I needed a sleeping pill to be able to sleep, because at that time I was also having hallucinations, and felt that if I fell asleep, I was going to be possessed by the devil. Totally, this was going to happen to me. I was on the floor praying with my mom in the middle of the night because I knew if I fell asleep, I was going to be possessed by the devil. And so I went in saying, I just need a sleeping pill. I need something to get me to go to sleep and to be okay. And I did. I needed something so badly, because I couldn't live the way I was living. It was either, I didn't know what it was. I wanted to die. And so, and the person in the employee assistance office said, well, I have somebody from Alcoholics Anonymous. Is it okay if they call you? And I don't know where this came from, but I said, okay, yes. And that person called me, and she asked me if I would meet her that night at a meeting. And I did. Again, not my idea of what to do next. I met her for a meeting and I followed her around. And 7 days later, I heard this woman speak at a meeting, and I knew that I needed her to take me through this program, to tell me what to do to be okay, because she sat in a chair, she told her story, and she told horrific things that had happened to her. And she had this sense of peace. She was angelic. She had this long flowing blonde hair. She was so at peace and happy despite all of these terrible things that had happened to her. And I wanted it so bad, and I never thought that that could ever be possible for me. Not for a second. I was a bad person to the core. There was nothing good about me. And she said, when I asked her to sponsor me, call me tomorrow morning. She had given me an assignment. So I wasn't sleeping, like I said, so I called her in the morning. It was 6:30 a.m. She picked up the phone, and she talked about the assignment she had given me. And we went through the first step together. And I started to feel a little glimpse of improvement in my life, a little glimpse of what it could be to feel okay. Just for a second. It didn't last long. In early sobriety for me, it took a long time. Before the meeting, I was reading Dr. Bob's story, and he talks about not being relieved of the alcoholic obsession for the first 1 to 2 years in alcohol as he was sober. And for me, that was true as well. I wasn't relieved of the desire to drink or that obsession to drink. My mental obsession was still there. The phenomenon of craving was gone because alcohol was out of my system after 72 hours. I did not have the phenomenon of craving, but I did have the mental obsession. And so I really had to delve into the step work obsessively almost to be able to relieve myself of that mental obsession. I constantly listened to cassette tapes of speakers, and I had the Joe and Charlie tapes from the early 90s, and I went around all of Manhattan listening to them on my little Walkman. And those are some of the tools that really saved me in early sobriety, because even walking without anybody next to me, I would have so much anxiety. Anything I did produced anxiety. I was not okay. I had no power, nothing, and I could feel that. I had nothing to guide me. I felt nothing inside. And so having that sponsor to say, listen to a cassette tape of Alcoholics Anonymous, do this step work was imperative. Have a home group. Do 3 selfless acts a day and don't tell anybody about them. Write a gratitude list every single day, even if you don't feel like it. These are the things I did in early sobriety that I still do today. And that still keep me sober today. Work with another alcoholic. And what did that mean for me when I had 3 days? That meant go talk to somebody else. Go hang out with all these sober people. So my group, I assume, much like yours, had lots of activities. So we had apple picking and pumpkin chop, whatever, we had some pumpkin stuff and apple picking. And I did those things even when I really didn't want to, and I hated it. Again, like I didn't want to be with people. The way I am today is not at all the way I was. I really have had a complete spiritual revolutionary change, a complete revolutionary change of myself. I hated people, and I wasn't nice. I really wasn't nice. People didn't want to be around me. I didn't care about anybody else. I would step all over you, and that occurred way well into sobriety. It took me a long time to really understand what being selfish meant. And that manifested in many ways, including taking your boyfriend, flirting with this person, doing that, getting into a relationship with my sponsee because I wanted to, despite her being in a relationship with somebody else. I had no qualms about doing anything to somebody else. I really only was concerned about myself for a very long time into sobriety while working the 12 steps, going to meetings, having a service commitment. It took me a long time to understand every action I take has consequences, and to look at every motive I have and to understand what that motive is so that I can actually earn my seat in Alcoholics Anonymous, walk down the road feeling that I'm here to help another person to get through whatever they're getting through. So I started working the 12 steps, and I got through my amends. One of my amends I remember that was really meaningful to me. I felt very guilty for the way that I had treated my parents and the way that I had disrespected them. And I made amends to my dad. And I said, Dad, I told him, I went through my script. And I said, do you forgive me? And he said, Kel, we forgave you the moment you did any of these things. And when he said that, a little piece of me melted. I started to understand what unconditional love meant. And what it meant, what I could aspire towards in other people. And how I could provide that. We forgave you the minute. I didn't forgive anyone for anything they ever did. I held it above you all the time. You crossed me and that was it. And I was the one that suffered, not that other person. I was the one who suffered. And so, not all of my amends were in that fashion and worked out so nicely. Many of them won't see me even to this day because I've done my due diligence by trying. I tried 3 times to get in touch with someone, and then at the end of those 3, if they don't want to meet with me, I say thank you for the opportunity. I won't contact you again. And so some of those people that I owe amends to won't see me. Someone told me, they said, well, I did this, and that to you. My amends had various responses, but I was able to get rid of so much of that guilt and those feelings of being such a terrible person by doing the amends. And when I got rid of those feelings, I was actually able to turn around. I was actually able to allow God to turn me around to someone different. It wasn't my own idea once again. It really was purely by grace. Purely by something that I didn't know I even wanted to be. And all of a sudden I started to say, okay, maybe I want to do something different with my life altogether. Maybe the things I thought were so important aren't so important anymore. And so I went back to school, and I went back to school to become a nurse. And I was so excited when I got into my first nursing program. I couldn't believe that I could get into school. I got into NYU, and I was going to be a nurse. I couldn't believe that that was going to be the direction of my life. It was either a nurse or a cop. Those were the two things that I thought I could do well for some reason. Couldn't be more opposite, but that's hey. So I ended up going to nursing school. Nursing school became very important to me, and meetings did not. I kind of dropped off my home group. I stopped doing service at my home group, and I made studying with friends so much more important. And this thought came to me recently about one of the examples of something that I had done. I remember going out with someone. We were going out to a club with someone from nursing school. And she was using drugs right in front of me, and I was very cavalier, thinking, I'm okay, I'll never do that again. Thinking that I knew better. I had this ego still, that this is fine, no problems here, it's the boy whistling in the dark. I'm fine here, I can do anything. And really, what I was doing is eroding at my sobriety. I wasn't feeding my spirituality, but really chopping down my sobriety. And like I mentioned before, what happened, I was still sponsoring people. And I ended up in a relationship with my sponsee. And I created a lot of damage. She started drinking again. And I made her my higher power. And I started to get that anxiety again, but I kept pushing it down. I kept pushing it down, saying this relationship was so much more important than anything else. I had to have this relationship. I went to school and I had to have this relationship, and I got to a point where I was going to drink again. And I remember my best friend, I went to a meeting, and my best friend looked at me and she said, "Are you even sober anymore?" And that hurt so much. I felt that. And so I was given a little rope, and someone told me, just ask this woman to sponsor you. And so I said, okay. And I remember she said, I want you to be at this Sunday night meeting no matter what. I was horrified. I had 4 years of sobriety. What do you mean, go to this meeting? You're making me go to this meeting? I remember telling my friend about it, and she's like, Kelly, just go. Just go. You're not doing well here yourself. Just go. And so I went to that meeting, even though I hated it, and I started to pick up the steps again. And I started to pick up having an active spiritual life, seeking something bigger than myself. I did another run through of the steps with further amends, and that relationship ended. I felt extremely guilty about the relationship because obviously I had caused serious harm, and that relationship went on for 2 years. I caused a lot of harm, and that person isn't sober to this day. And while I know that I can't get anyone sober, I also know I caused a lot of damage in her recovery process or whatever process she had. I've since made amends to her for that, and it was a pretty powerful one, and it was a really difficult one to do. And I asked to make amends to her partner at the time as well. She didn't want to see me, but accepted my amend. And I once again got back into working with a sponsor and working on working on looking deeper at what a higher power meant to me. And once I graduated nursing school, I ended up meeting somebody, and I've now been married for the past 10 years. We've been together for 12 years. We have 8-year-old twin boys, and it's been a very amazing process. She is not an Alcoholics Anonymous. She's now a pretty awesome Al-Anoner, and she keeps me in line. And so I owe so much to her. So we got together, and I'm very blessed to have such a loving relationship. And so I then went back to school and became a nurse practitioner, and I work in the palliative care unit at a cancer hospital in New York. And so every day, my life is now about serving others. And I can't tell you how much joy I have when I go home, because my life is not my own. It is not my own. It is purely driven by God's grace and what this universe had in store for me that I couldn't have even imagined myself. I've been through lots of different ups and downs. I had an experience where I thought I had lung cancer, and I had multiple surgeries. I've had multiple different issues come up, and I've been able to work with a sponsor throughout all of those issues, and I've been really blessed. And I think throughout all of this, I always continue to look back towards, what does being powerless over alcohol mean to me? Because if I don't remember that I'm powerless over alcohol, that I'm absolutely unable to take alcohol in any form whatsoever, then I have nothing. And so one of my sponsors talked to me about looking at that powerlessness, looking at what are exact examples of how I took alcohol and had no idea what would happen once I took the alcohol, or how I had no control whatsoever over alcohol, whether I was drinking, whether I drank or not, and how much I drank. And so I came up with these examples, and I continue to think about them today, because once I forget those things, I'm in big trouble. And once I forget those things, I forget that I'm an alcoholic, that Alcoholics Anonymous is my solution, that a higher power is my solution to alcoholism. So step one for me, paramount to remember. As a result of being powerless over alcohol, my life is unmanageable. Everything else happens as a result of being powerless over alcohol. When I forget that, my life becomes unmanageable very quickly. Obviously, I've given you some of the small examples or big examples that happen. Once I forget that I need God, that I need this higher power, I need a power bigger than myself, then I'm screwed. So I move into step two. And step two to me is that proposition, God is either everything or nothing. And I have a big book meeting at my house every week, and my sponsees come, and we're studying the big book, right? We're studying so that we can have a new experience each time we go through the big book. We can have some sort of new way of feeling as a result of going through the big book. So I'm looking at step two. I'm looking at that proposition. God is everything or God is nothing. Where in my life today is that the case? And unfortunately, I can always answer, there are places in my life that is not the case. I don't always believe God is everything. And what does that mean? That means I'm fearful. I'm without knowledge. I have not chosen I have not given and asked God for help in that area. And what is my solution? My solution is to look at how I can do that. My solution is to hit my knees in the morning. My solution is to ask God for help in these areas that I don't believe God can handle. And so the second step proposition to me, God is everything or nothing, is extremely important for me to go into step 3 when I'm going to say, I'm ready, God, have me. I can't do this anymore myself. Take me in everything, and that means everything. My children, when they were born prematurely at 31 weeks, so they were in the NICU, they were in the hospital for a month. And I did not want to give my children to God. I wanted to have control. I wanted to make sure no matter what, they were going to be okay. And I felt I had that power. It was excruciating every day to leave the hospital and put their care into the hands of somebody else. But that's what this program asked me to do. My children are not my own. My children are God's. Everything that I have is God's, not my own. When I start to grab it and take, that's when the trouble starts. When I start to hold on to things, then I know I'm in trouble. I'm going down the wrong path. So step 3 to me, I allow myself to give myself over to my higher power. I allow God to take my children, to take everything, and I take a step back. And I think about it as this, it describes it in the big book, but I think about it as this huge tapestry that I can't see the beginning or the end of. It's humongous, this tapestry, and God is giving each person a job to do to make that tapestry beautiful. Sometimes it's like, I don't know why buckets of water are involved in the tapestry, but they are. And so sometimes you have water and this person's doing this, but I don't know what other people are doing. But I can never see this full thing of what it looks like, but it's bigger than me, it's huge, and it's really pretty and beautiful. And if I can allow myself just to be whoever I need to be that day, or whoever God needs me to be that day, I have a pretty good day. And I'm happy as a result. I'm really happy as a result. And in step 4, I've done multiple inventories. And what's been important to me these past couple of years is really identifying the feeling that I'm actually having. So if I'm mad, if I'm scared, identifying that feeling so that I can do the proper inventory that correlates with the feeling. If I'm angry, I'm resentful, I'm putting that down. I'm looking at what is that resentment? Really, what is that? Why am I mad? What does that affect inside of me? What's coming up? And then I say, okay, how can I do things differently? Where were my mistakes? I always have mistakes. In my job, we talk a lot about feedback. We talk a lot about how to do things differently. I am going into a family's room where their loved one is not doing well and dying. I need to be able to analyze my behavior, what I say, to make sure that I can be compassionate, loving, and understanding, so that I can sit down and look that person in the eyes and ask them what they need from me. And I learned that from Alcoholics Anonymous. I learned how to do that, be present, look in somebody else's eyes, understand what they need and how they're feeling, step outside of myself and be there for that person. So when I'm looking at my behavior in every room, I'm looking at my actions in every room at my job, I'm always looking at how I can do things better. And I got that from Alcoholics Anonymous, from learning how to do a 4th step, from learning how to do any type of inventory in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm able to look at the facts of what I'm doing, and then, and only then, can I change that behavior. And then I look at how that behavior might make somebody else feel. And then I say, show me, God, I'm giving this to you. I get it now, what I did. You take it. Show me how to do it differently, because I'm not quite sure. And so that opened myself up in step 6 and 7 to say, okay, take it. I do get it now. I really get those defects. I see how they can be harmful to somebody else. Now just help me, show me. And maybe I'm not shown right away. Those defects don't always go away. You know, I had a really big problem for a long time with being very condescending to people. And, you know, I would pray and I would say, please take this away. Please, please, I don't want to be this way. But inside myself, I still had a lot of ego and I still had a lot of pride attached to that. I wanted to prove so badly that I was worth it, that I was smart, that I deserved to be wherever I was, that I wasn't stupid. I wanted so badly for other people to like me, for you to like me. And what was involved in that is I was harming you by trying to talk down to you to make me feel better. And people don't want to be around that. You know, I got some bad reviews at work from that exact thing. It's not a popular trait. It doesn't work very well. And finally, it just started to go away. Not because I had made a decision, because I don't believe that I have power over my defects of character. I very much believe God has the ability to remove the defects of character. And it's not as a result of me working on them, because I worked on that. I worked it really well, but it didn't change. It was really as a result of me writing the inventory, looking at the behavior, how it affects other people, going to you face to face saying, I'm really sorry, that was disrespectful. I spoke to you in a way that you should never be spoken to. Looking at that person in the eye and learning that I can't treat people that way. And so really sitting down and addressing steps 8 and 9. Okay, I'll go make an amend to the person I gossiped with about another person. I'm not going to the person I gossiped about because I could cause harm unless that person knows. But I'm going to the person I gossiped with. And I'm going to that person and I'm saying, I shouldn't have done that. That's not a nice way to be. I shouldn't have talked about that person. And then I build that person up. I build them up. I make sure that I am supportive of that person. I don't say bad things about the person anymore, but I build them up whenever I talk about them or whenever we have the conversation about them comes up. And that was a real difficult one for me. And then in my step 10, I love step 10 so much because step 10, there's so much in step 10 that we don't even realize. In step 10, it asks us to grow in effectiveness. What does that really mean to me? Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And this is not an overnight matter. We continue. There are so many action words in step 10 that I miss. Step 10 is this huge, tall order that we're asked to build. I'm growing in effectiveness. I'm watching out for selfishness, self-seeking, frustration, anything that comes up, fear, resentment. And when they come up, I talk about them immediately, right? So this is asking me to build my spiritual program. And what I needed was discipline to be able to have a good step 10 with an 11-step nightly inventory. I needed discipline. So I didn't all of a sudden become this wonderful person, right? Like we said, after doing my first 4th step. I needed to have discipline. I needed to make sure each morning I was waking up and I was doing my prayer and my meditation. And in my meditation, part of what I do is ask God how I can be better. What do I need to do today to be a better person? Show me, tell me. And I use one of the original AA ways of looking at listening to God through meditation. My prayer is my way of talking to God, and I listen to God through meditation. I hear God's voice. What am I to do in my morning meditation? And a lot of times I would take the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, and I would take one line from that prayer, and I would ask God to help me with that one line for that day. And then I would go throughout the day. Sometimes I set my phone every hour to remember to have that conscious contact with a higher power, to continue to ask God how I can do things differently, to assess each behavior, and that includes assessing my motives for each behavior. My motives are really where I run into problems now. Why am I having each action? Why am I doing each of these things? And then I do my nightly inventory, and you guys have those cards. I love the blue cards in the back there. That's wonderful. I do mine in an email, and I write it and I check in. I have a couple friends I do a nightly inventory with, and we answer the questions and we send it to each other, and we comment on each other's inventory. I give my friends spiritual license to know me. I allow myself to be open and vulnerable to my friends so that I can check myself. When I have that vulnerability, I tend to have my behavior changed. When I'm accountable to other people, my behavior changes. So we talk about it. And I've added some questions to my inventory each night because I like to keep it interesting. So I also say, what did my wife do right? What did Kim do right today? So I want to make sure I'm looking at all the wonderful things I have. I'm doing a daily gratitude list, and that's my practice. That discipline of doing it, even when I'm really tired and don't want to do it, even when I don't feel like waking up early, has created my spiritual life, not the other way around. I didn't feel like I had a God. I definitely did not like God, right? I had no desire to have, I hated the word. Growing up Catholic, I didn't want anything to do with religion. And what came for me throughout this is God. I got this power greater than myself, and I don't mind calling it God, whatever it is, he, she, whatever. I don't mind that. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me cringe, whereas it did before. And so I have that discipline, and it's created this spirituality around me. And I want to circle back around. When I told you I was adopted at 9 years old, it was a closed adoption. I didn't know who my birth parents were. I always wanted to know. Always wanted to know. It was this thing inside of me that I needed. I would always search and look. And this year, I found my birth parents. And I don't think that would have been possible without the spiritual foundation I have. You know, what I found out is that I am from this huge Italian family, and my dad didn't know I existed. And my biological mom is deceased. I told him I'd send him the CD too of me speaking because he hasn't heard me, and now I'm crying. I met him and I felt at home, and I love my parents as well. I could sit down and say, I love you, Mom and Dad, and I found my biological mom and dad. But I love you and you'll always be my parents. And now I have this huge, huge family. I have brothers and sisters, or half brothers and sisters that I didn't know existed. And I'm starting to form this amazing relationship with my biological father. And at first he said, no, it can't be. And then he said, okay. And he opened his arms, and his wife called me and said, "I'm so glad you're in our lives. You and your wife are welcome into our home whenever. We want to be a part of your life." And my biological dad says, every day he texts me or calls me. We talk every day now since this happened. And he says, "I love you, daughter. And I've been given this huge gift that I did not think was possible. And it's helped me in so many ways heal in other areas. But I was whole when I found him. I wasn't searching for someone to make me feel okay. I was whole because I had a foundation. I had a higher power. I have God in my life. I have a beautiful family. My children are ecstatic now. They have like 5 grandparents. No, they have 6 grandparents. 2, 4, 6. They have 6. They have 6 grandparents. And they're ecstatic, and they have a ton of cousins. And I'm sad I won't get to meet my biological mother, that she's deceased. I'm sad. But I understand that that's okay. And I understand that this just might be the way it's supposed to be. And I can know her in other ways because I have 2 half-brothers and a half-sister on her side. And everybody's excited to have a relationship, and they like me. I can't believe it. They like me, they like being around me, and they want to visit, and they want to continue to have family gatherings. And my biological dad is throwing me a birthday party on my birthday this year, and I'm going to meet all my cousins. And my grandmother is 88 years old, and she's still alive. What a blessing. What a blessing that I would not have if I were not here speaking, if I were not sober, if I didn't work with other alcoholics. What a blessing. And I'm also in my final year of a PhD program. I barely graduated college. I couldn't even do math, and I'm doing my dissertation in statistical analysis. I didn't think that was possible. I couldn't do math. I needed my best friend by my side to do math at the Little League games when we sold sodas. And now this is where I am today. I believe truly in my heart, in my very being, that anything, and it talks about it in the big book, all is possible with infinite God. God is impossible to understand, and to me, that means there are infinite possibilities for every single one of us. I am not limited here when I have this program, when I have all of you. I am not limited. I never would have thought my wife would go to Al-Anon. And now she goes to Al-Anon, does inventory, and she just was at a workshop all day. And she's speaking, and she's doing amazing work for herself, not for me, but for herself. And we're raising our children in a home where they have a solution when problems arise, where they have an emotional solution when problems arise. And we're teaching them the 12 steps, basically, by the way we parent, because that's our life, that's who we are today. We're teaching them how to feel okay inside of yourself. And they've been in Alcoholics Anonymous rooms since they could leave the house. And they come, and sometimes Massimo, my son, will say, "That was a really good speaker." You know, they'll say, they know Mommy does step work. And I said, "Do you know what Alcoholics Anonymous is?" He said, "Yes, it's where people go who are allergic to alcohol." He's 8. And then he says, and then he'll talk about why it's important to go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And I mean, it's a dream, you know, when they talk about also, and I always dreamed that our house would be that house where gatherings would occur every night of the week, and we'd have, you know, the coffee in one room and the meetings in the other, and that kind of is my house now. You know, I have somebody coming over that I do step work with regularly. I have a big book meeting, like I said, in my house. That's my life today. I could not imagine anything better, even if I tried. I am so incredibly blessed. And funny how this worked. My wife and I had planned to go to Atlantic City this weekend. And she just happened to have this workshop all day today. And then she's going to see someone speak tonight. And it worked out perfectly that I could come here, speak, go pick her up in Philly, and we could go to Atlantic City. Things like this happen all the time when I just go along with the flow and say yes. So I'm incredibly grateful to be here, to be able to be a proud member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and for my belief in a higher power today. Thank you.
Epic talk. Thank you, Kelly. Let's thank her one more time, please. There's just so much work behind the scenes that goes into this group and this meeting, and I always forget to thank Brett. He works tirelessly on those ham sliders. Let's thank Brett one more time. Thank you. Next week we have Jimmy S. out of New Jersey. He's going to bring the heat. It's customary for us to form a line and thank our speakers. They come here at their own time and expense just for us to share with us. So again, thanks. If you like to give us a hand afterwards, we got to do some cleaning up in the kitchen and the chairs. Anyway, we got a nice way of closing if you care to join us. We have a Facebook page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Important to keep you linked in on that. Form a circle. Circle gets this. We hooked in? All right. Let's take a moment of silence. Do with it whatever you care to do with it. If you care to join us, we will end with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses,